everybody, to a very special episode of Random Encounter, the RPG Fan podcast. I'm your host, Robert Steinman, Pale Robbie on the boards. Joining me today, we have the man, I'm going to call you Chaz. Is that okay, Steven?
That's perfectly fine. I'm busy, though.
Oh, for God's sake, we're not even there yet. Who do we think John is? John strikes me as either Ren or
Kyra. I take that back. That was unwarranted and not all that clever.
It's going to throw a boomerang at you. Okay, well,
I'll go with... throw two slashers at me. I'm a slasher.
He's like Rune. So, John, go ahead.
Wait. No, can I be Rune?
No, shut up.
This is John McCarroll. I'm executive editor, and I'm going to go with Ren. I like being...
No, I like Ren.
Okay, that's cool. No. Wait, what?
I like Ren.
That's too bad.
This isn't fair.
Ren doesn't have opinions, Rob.
Rob, you strike me
You
more as a
have
Demi.
too many.
What am I? If you
Demi.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Derek is our Han.
No. Why do I have to be Han? I'd rather be Alice.
What about Grizz?
Grizz is okay. He's kind of freaky.
Grizz just kind of shows up.
I'm going to hit him with my axe. Derek, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Derek Heemsbergen. Do news sometimes when I feel like it, and I'm Embryon on the boards.
All right. So if you guys can no doubt tell, we're going to talk about Chrono Trigger today. So
Really? I was thinking we were going to talk about Metroid.
Oh, there you go. No, we're going to talk a lot about Phantasy Star IV. We've all kind of been playing it this summer, and kind of an old classic. We're trying something a little different this time for the podcast, maybe talking about old games a little bit as we're in the middle of this summer slump. So before we talk about the game, the culmination of the Phantasy Star universe, I think it's important to take a little trip down memory lane to the very first Phantasy Stars. So, Steven, give us a little bit of background on Phantasy Star here a little bit. I'm sure you have the Wikipedia page open and you can help us out.
Actually, I don't have the Wikipedia page open because I have memorized it.
Okay.
So, yeah, back in the day, the Sega Master System had the original Phantasy Star, which I can't remember when the first Final Fantasy came out, but I'm pretty sure Phantasy Star came after. And
Phantasy Star was December 20th, 1987 in Japan.
Final Fantasy was like February or something, wasn't it?
Final Fantasy was December 18th, 1987.
Wow.
Interesting. Okay, well, what you basically had there are two completely different takes on the JRPG. Final Fantasy was, very open-ended, and it had a plot, but it was pretty loose. Phantasy Star, the original, had a female protagonist, which was, like, unheard of. And not only that, but she was a total badass.
And she had a cat.
She had a cat named Meow.
And the cat could be eaten.
She had a cat named Meow, and it was pretty much a story of revenge. And I mentioned it when we did our top 10 Girls of Gaming feature. I'm sorry if I called it the wrong title, but you know what I mean. And, rather than being, I'm looking for, I want to save the world, or, I'm looking for love or some stupid cliche. I mean, she was looking to kick someone's ass. And that was totally just way out there for that time period. And not only that, the game itself was just, it was just awesome. I mean, you had 3 different planets. You had, betrayal. You had all this, it was really just a great example of where the JRPG was at that point. And it was kind of the antithesis to Final Fantasy, because it was just, every character had a set role, and, the plot was a little more focused, and it was unlike anything else at the time. And it was great.
Well, you also had the fact that it was a first-person dungeon crawler. Correct?
Very true. And I think they actually advertised it as being 3D. Unlike Final Fantasy, the original Phantasy Star was, when you're in dungeons, it was first-person, a lot like Shining in the Darkness, or like Shining the Holy Ark.
Mm-hmm.
And since we're doing old games, I'm using old references. And, it was really cool. And then when the second one came out, some people were a little surprised, because the second one was, top down. It was a lot more, the main character was a male, and it took place 2,000 years after the first one. And it looked like it had kind of dumped a lot of the stuff that their original had. But as you played it, you realize that wasn't at all the case. You still had the 3 planets. You had a really elaborate story for the time. You had a difficulty that made you think the developers hated you. And that's not true. They gave you a guide.
Well, but I just remember Phantasy Star 2, and it was one of my first RPGs, and I was playing it on the Sega channel, and so, I'm a little kid, I have no idea what an RPG is. I remember firing this thing up, and so I walk out of town with my cute cat-eared girlfriend, thinking, okay, well, we're gonna go on a magical adventure.
She wasn't his girlfriend, but okay.
Well, whatever. His ward. Is that okay?
No.
And so then I left the town. I think I walked 3 spaces, and then like 2 giant bumblebees came after me and nearly killed me.
They were called Waspy. Thank you.
As you
And
can
they
no
were
doubt
green.
tell, ladies and gentlemen, this is a series that is very near and dear to Steven's heart.
Phantasy Star 2 was mean to people. Like,
It was mean. It had lots of rewards, but it was very cruel.
would you like to save anywhere? Okay, you need to make sure that you have this thief character, and you're going to do this thing that we're never going to tell you that you need to do.
Also, do you know what Sue does? Do you know what Wat does? Or Wat's kind of obvious. How about Medjid? Yeah, go ahead and cast that when you're almost dead. Have some fun with that one.
Yeah, there's this really interesting naming structure with the whole Phantasy Star series, and I've really been struggling it as we play the 4th one, like not knowing what each spell does. There's nothing to tell. Like you'll just use a spell and it will say not effective, and you're like, well,
And
I don't know what it meant to do.
I swear to you, Rob, it's worse in 2 because, like I said, 4 is so near and dear to my heart, as you said, that at this point I've memorized everything in that game. I can tell you anything about it. But 2, I haven't played as much, and you get some characters in 2. Every character has their own unique set of skills. You get this guy Kane, and he's got all these moves, and you're like, what the hell do these moves do?
Wasn't
And then-
there? You could have an herbalist in 2, or was it I was a biologist. right?
Biologist.
You.
Let me put it this way. Hugh is Han, only like half the stats.
Sorry, Derek.
He is, without a doubt, the worst character in the series, and that's
I
why.
don't know what I did to deserve this, but go on.
Why is Derek Hugh? I thought he was Han.
No, he's Han. He's Han.
No, they
Han's a
demoted
badass.
me. They demoted me, apparently.
No, that's not a demotion. Han is cool. Han has the Vol spells. Han can instantly kill people, and he has the cool daggers that sell for like a ton of money.
Han has the fashion sense of a lab rat.
Dude, he's a scientist. All right, you know what? Never mind. We're getting
Well,
off topic here.
Phantasy Star 2, like, I barely played it, but then I looked back on it, I watched some YouTube videos about it and whatnot. And you're talking about a game where you become, like, a terrorist to this civilization. Like, everyone hates you after the first couple hours of this game. It's like, for that game to be released at such an early point in the Genesis life cycle, and for them to be trying to create this really overarching narrative that is dealing with a whole society that hates you. It's very it's sci-fi mixed with medieval, which I think is why I loved it so much. Is that it wasn't just different from Final Fantasy in terms of its look and its play style, but also just from the overall narrative structure. Like you're sitting there and you're getting like androids to be part of your party, and that's always cool.
And yeah, I could spew a love story about this, but in the interest of being fair to our main topic, I'll go on to the next one.
Which is the one that everyone's kind of like, eh? And
Except me.
You know what? As a kid, I was like Rob. I played 4 on Sega Channel, and I was like, this is badass. And I, lost my save 10 times. And then finally, I got sick. Actually, what happened was I got hit in the head by a piece of wood, and I had stitches, and I was practically unconscious. And so my parents said, hey, we'll go out and buy you a game. So I was like, oh, dude, I'm going to buy that Phantasy Star IV game. Well, I went out, and I didn't know what the box looked like, and I ended up with Phantasy Star III.
Ooh.
And I had already gotten to Zealand, the satellite, in Phantasy Star IV on Sega Channel, and lost my save. So I knew very well what the game was all about. So I played 3, and I was like, what is this nonsense? And as a kid, I hated it. I never wanted to play it. Like the battle theme, the battle loop is like 2.5 seconds long if you don't actually play.
Well, that game was made. It was released the year after Phantasy Star 2, I believe. And so it was like you had one team working on Phantasy Star 2, another team working on Phantasy Star 3, and then 3 comes out, and all the stuff that I've been talking about, like the science fiction angle,
Appears
that's all.
to be gone.
It appears to be gone. It
But
comes
the
back.
thing is, it's a lot like King's Quest 3. King's Quest 3, you start out and you're a slave kid, and then it turns out later that you're the prince of the kingdom, and it is a King's Quest. Phantasy Star 3 starts out, and it's not even remotely related to the other ones. Some of the skills are the same, and you get a version of Fuoren. In Japanese, he was Fuoren, I think, or Shiren. I can't. We're getting really random, but you get androids, and so they're remnants of the other games. But you're like, what the heck? And then you play it more, and I played it, in college finally and beat it, and I actually really liked it because it had the guts to have a different take on that series. What it ends up being, and I guess we're past the statute of limitations for spoilers, is that in Phantasy Star 2, a planet gets destroyed and all these different ships are escaping. And in Phantasy Star 3, you're on one of those ships, and it turns out that the main antagonist of 2, Dark Force, has like spawned himself numerous times, which plays into Phantasy Star 4. And there's one of them on this ship causing it, it's a world ship. It's an entire world on one ship. And he's trashing it. And it turns out that it's very well related.
I think one thing I love about the Phantasy Star series is that you're not just fighting some evil dude who's out to destroy the universe. You're fighting literally the embodiment of pure hate
evil
and darkness. Like, you are fighting something that would make Satan blush. You're not fighting Kuja, who's just mad. You're not fighting Sephiroth, who has mommy issues.
Yeah, you will not reason with Dark Force. Chaz isn't going to go, oh, Dark Force, we feel bad for him. We got to go back and save him in the Aoife tree. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, this thing is just hate and pain, and I love that.
Battle music is awesome in every game, and it usually indicates hate.
But now correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't he named Dark Phallus in 2?
No. It is, in the first Phantasy Star, he was always called Dark Force. But in Phantasy Star 1, it wasn't mistranslated because I think they knew it was supposed to be Force, but they wanted to make it sound cooler. So they named him Dark Falls, Falz. And then in 2, he became Dark Force, and in 3 and 4. And then in Phantasy Star 4, you can fight in the final dungeon a random encounter that is the final boss of Phantasy Star 1, and it's called Prophallus, which is just horrible. Because, it's flat out called Prophallus. And then in Phantasy Star Online, I guess as a throwback to the classics, the final boss is called Dark Falls.
Which is just one of those situations where it's like, really? So Phantasy Star 3, I think it's a game that I definitely want to play because it's called Generations of Doom, and it's all about, you going out and you get your choice of who you're going to marry, and then your offspring take on the characteristics of whoever you take as your wife. So you have multiple storylines, multiple endings, and I think that's really cool.
That was incredibly unique for the time.
I love the simplification, though. It's like, oh, congratulations, you defeated this evil at the end of this generation. Who do you want to marry?
Yeah, it wasn't like, who do you love? It's like, who's going to be your woman, honey?
Yeah. Do you want the girl with green hair or the girl with blue hair?
What's interesting is the whole...
Everyone had magic.
More complicated, as you say, it's not who you love. Well, in the first generation, one of the marriages is a political marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Which is cool. Very Game of Thrones. Sorry.
So I think even now, if you really like Phantasy Star and you've never been able to beat 3, if you can play 3 without assuming, oh, this should be 2 or 4, because neither of those are fair, because it's not like 2, and it's definitely not as good as 4. But if you love that story, 3 has a really interesting take on it that sort of a lot of people thought, Phantasy Star Online takes place in that world ship, so a lot of people thought, it was kind of a spin-off. And that's really what 3 is. It's a spin-off because, it has all those familiar elements. They just don't present themselves as quickly, and the art style isn't as colorful or vibrant or, I guess, anime inspired. So, and it's a lot slower paced. So some people got frustrated, and I can understand that.
Yeah, it's a game that I definitely want to try again. And I think without the blinders on, like, even as a little kid going from 2 to 3 to 4, I was like, whoa, like, I can see 4 being the sequel to 2, but 3 to me was just right out. But I want to try it again.
Yes.
It's an interesting expansion on the universe, and they did that a lot because they had the Game Gear graphic novels, and they had all that. So they did expand on those characters a lot. It's just it didn't give people what they wanted, which was the next 1,000 years later, Dark Falls is back, and he's super mean.
Right. Now I think we're ready to start with 4, unless everybody has anything else.
Now, one thing, just I'm looking at the wiki entry for 3, and I had no idea that you can sell the boots of the main character at the very beginning and buy an escapipe.
And you can break the game.
Yeah, and you break the game. The king
and he tells... Yeah. I did it as a kid, actually. I didn't even do it on purpose, because I like, oh, man, I'm going to buy monomates. And as a kid, I didn't realize what armor was for. So I just took it all off and sold it, because I was like, I'm going to buy some healing items. And I bought an escape pipe, because I played Phantasy Star 4, and I was like, oh, yeah, those are helpful. Oops.
What happens?
You use it because the game sets itself up where there's a line of soldiers that block you into talking to your father, so you can activate the event where your wife gets kidnapped.
Yeah.
And if you use the escape pipe after you get captured, I think it is, you go back outside and it cuts off. It basically kills the event chain. And so they're like, if you talk to anybody, they go, "We're sorry, you've done something we didn't expect. So please reset the game and start over."
Well, at least they saw enough to realize that that was a problem. That's kind of like throwing the Castlevania Symphony of the Night CD into a CD player, and Alucard just berates you for
Yeah,
it.
Track 1
Yes.
complains. Wow, I just tried to make a cool reference and I totally effed it up. Track 1 contains computer data, so please don't play it. Okay, I'm done.
But you
Fantasy-
probably
Skies
won't
of Arcadia
listen.
did that as well.
Yeah.
Put us back in the Dreamcast so we can do our job.
So 4, my first exposure to 4 wasn't when I played it on Sega Channel. Actually, it was when I picked up a copy of Game Fan. I loved Game Fan as a kid. Like I loved that magazine, and so I pick up a copy of Game Fan, and just the front cover is like a battle screen like a painted battle screen from Phantasy Star 4, complete with like the main Game Fan mascot as like part of the party lineup. I remember looking at that and I was like, wow, this is absolutely gorgeous. I'm interested in playing this game. And then I open up the magazine and I'm like, that's what the game looks like. And it just blew me away that a game could look this good. And not only that, but also have all the creatures on screen animated. Like, granted, maybe it's only their eyes are glowing,
But
it's-
something is moving.
right, something is moving, and like the battle animations are huge. Like, this game is gorgeous. Even today, it is a great looking 16-bit RPG.
Yeah, it has aged exceptionally well, particularly the cutscenes.
The Phantasy Star 4 stands as one of the first cinematic RPGs, and this is a game that was released several years before FMV could be done.
Yep. And it almost feels like they were trying to make it for Sega CD with the, painted anime backgrounds that depict the story. One of the first things that you do in the game is you get the the Ashline, or the potion that
Ashland, yeah.
Ashland, the
It's
potion
called
that,
something different in Phantasy Star 1. Like,
Right.
It's mistranslated.
the potion that frees this village that's all been turned to stone. And so you get to see this village turning back to normal in these anime cutscenes. There's sounds in the background, the music changes, and it's really just like you've never played anything like it. And it's the beginning, as John said, of a cinematic RPG.
Absolutely. And it really helped some of those scenes because, you would have, scenes in Final Fantasy where characters would die and it would be dramatic. Like when Sid dies in Final Fantasy VI.
Spoiler! No, I'm just playing.
That
If
was,
you couldn't bring him enough fish.
Yeah, which was totally random. But, and
He
was
needed omega fatty acids.
what the hell was wrong with him?
He was dying of cancer.
but no, you're right.
Those anime
know what?
cutscenes.
Of all the
go
things
ahead.
I'm sorry, of all the things to die of in a post-apocalyptic world, that's just stupid.
Derek, go ahead.
No, I was gonna shout out to Breath of Death, or not Breath of Death, but Cthulhu Saves the World by Zeboid Games, because he uses that same style, like the comic panel anime cutscene kind of things,
Really?
as a throwback to Phantasy Star 4. Yeah,
Oh, cool.
That's
it's
cool.
really cool, and those are out there for $3. Plug. I really like those games.
I've played the first one. I played Breath of Death, but I didn't play Cthulhu Saves the World, but I might have to.
Yeah, there's a reference in the beginning of Breath of Death where like they do the whole panel screen, because like the first panel in the game that you get is when Alice and Chaz, the two hunters on the planet Motavia, they're getting ready to go out on their first mission, and they do like this sweeping shot of just this beautifully drawn panel of these two looking over a hill. I just remember like something so simple, like it made you feel like you were going to go on an adventure right from the very start. And Breath of Death has a very similar scene. And I guess like these comic book panels are just such an amazing way to depict the story. And it's the thing that I think everybody first remembers about Phantasy Star 4 are just these really beautiful painted backgrounds.
Yeah, and I'm sorry if I'm monopolizing the conversation. Let me
No,
know if
sure,
I'm talking too
Steven,
much.
this is your baby, man. It's fine.
But those panels, like some of the scenes, like when Eris dies in Final Fantasy VII, that's supposed to be super emotional, and whether or not it was, it's up to you. But to watch Elise die in 4 in those cutscenes was, when I first played it, I mean, I was like 5. I was like in tears. I was like, this is like watching a cartoon.
Yeah, and there's
It's so far beyond anything else at the time in terms of storytelling that it explains to you why people are upset. or were upset when they announced Phantasy Star Online, because they remember those moments that are like brutal in that game because of those cutscenes or those panels.
And the story itself is see, I, having not played a lot of Phantasy Star 2 and practically none of 1 and 3, their story is just all shout outs to the rest of the saga. Like,
but what's nice is that it's not necessary to have played the others.
Very true. Very true.
You can get all that backstory from 4, but if you've played the others, you'll sit there and go, that's awesome.
Yeah, and it ties everything together. I mean, this was meant to be the finale of the series. I mean, the game is called The End of the Millennium.
Yeah.
Like, it's about the end of this star system, these 3 planets, well, now 2, but it's this end of a story. And it's kind of amazing to think about that. Like, it's our first real quadrilogy in video games, like a continuing story arc that just kind of keeps going.
Like, did you play, when you were playing 4, Rob, I know you've been playing it recently, did you do the optional dungeon on Motavia in the beginning when you go into the crashed spaceship?
Yes.
That is, for me, because when I first played 4, it was the first one I really played and finished, because I'd never ended up getting through 3 until way later. And, I mean, I was a big fan of James Maxlow's Phantasy Star page, like, growing up. Like, he had this fan site that's tons of information, and so I kind of knew what happened in 2. So to have that, it's literally talking about 2, and I think that's one of the first times, if not the first time, an RPG really referenced a prequel. And I mean, it flat out said, this happened in 2, and if you played 2, you're sitting there going, this is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's just striking to me that, and I'm not dogging on Final Fantasy. I don't want anybody to think that. I love the old Final Fantasy games, but for them, each Final Fantasy stands on its own. Like, it has an overall theme. It's usually about crystals. It's usually about some evil empire trying to take over the universe. But, like, Phantasy Star is a story about a star system. It's a story about characters. Like, in Phantasy Star 4, you find the memory of one of the characters from Phantasy Star 1.
And for, I know that we didn't say this explicitly. Wow, we're talking about all the Phantasy Star games. There are going to be spoilers here.
They're like, what at this point, 20 years old in some cases?
Yeah.
Yeah. More than that.
Statute is up.
Yeah. Where you have Rune, who is Lutz.
Yep.
He's basically the reincarnation of Noah from the first game. And, you play Noah in the first game, and then in the second game, you meet his descendant, or not his descendant, but the next, person who carries his memory, and that dude helps you out. And then to have Rune, it's just so cool that there are these consistent, motifs or concepts that come up in each one, and they're all integrated differently, but in a really cool way. Like,
yeah, it's not Sid. It's not like, oh, there's a guy named Lutz, or in every game, this is Lutz.
Yeah,
if you played Phantasy Star 1, this is that character 4,000 years later.
Is the timeline screwed up there? Because in 4, they definitely say that the original Alice defeated Dark Force 2,000 years ago. Is the timeline screwed up there?
I'm sorry, it's every 1,000 years.
Okay. Well,
so it would be the first one, then 1,000 years pass, and then the second one, and then 1,000 years pass, and you have the fourth one.
Yeah, because the third one is on some side story.
The thing that really strikes me about 4 is that the translation job is actually fairly good. Like, they're using a lot of verbiage that kind of sets the stage. The androids very much talk in a science fiction way. Rune is a little bit more mystical, and each character has their own voice.
Here's a good example. I was just playing it a second ago, and the scene in the beginning when you're trying to get to Grizz's hometown, Rune has to use his magic to blow open the cave, and he goes, "Oh, this should be a cinch." That was like unheard of. Like, as a kid, I didn't recognize that because I didn't have that much of a concept of language and translation. But to read that now for a game that's that old, to say a phrase like "this is a cinch," I mean, that's like a '90s phrase up in there.
Yeah, it very much feels localized. It feels like a game that went through a localization process, and that's what helps it sound natural. I mean, I think the biggest problem that we've been having in localization, we've talked about this before on the podcast, like, to me, the most natural localization is one where they'll use colloquial sayings for the territory. Like, I think the translation jobs that are just straight translation, they have a hard time resonating with us as Americans because we don't talk like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you get some of the unique Japanese phrases like "let's do our best" or
Yamate.
Yeah.
And you know what? And you get into a pretty interesting argument there, because there are people that think that's better. Like when the new Chrono Trigger came out, or not new, but when Chrono Trigger came out on DS and they retranslated it, it was a lot more literal. And so was Final Fantasy VI on Game Boy. And there were some people that were really excited because they were going to get the original, essence of the text, whereas they weren't going to get like the Ted Woolsey version, where they had like "son of a submariner" and all these goofy phrases that were.
I love that kind of stuff, though. I don't know.
Yeah, I do too. Like,
so you get into an interesting argument about that. Is it localization or transliteration?
See, and I'm so frustrated because John's going to roll his eyes here in a second because I'm going to talk about one of my favorite series again. It wouldn't be a podcast if
Hey, you know what's great is when you have like these characters that have really bizarre names that don't make any sense. Rob, do you know what series that is?
Okay, first off, the Jeremy Blouse, but I'm a huge Jeremy Blaustein fan, for example, and Jeremy Blaustein has taken a lot of flack over the translation job on the original Metal Gear Solid. There's a reason why he has taken a lot of flack on that. Like Kojima, awesome? They retranslated Twin Snakes.
Yeah, and they ruined the voice acting.
And they ruined it. Like, there's parts of it that don't make sense anymore. And the reason is because Blaustein took the general idea of the original Metal Gear Solid and he translated it to make it sound correct in English.
Yeah, I mean, it sounded like a movie.
Right.
Like an American movie.
Right, and that's what I think Phantasy Star IV does. When you have a very literal translation, sure, you're getting the Japanese culture in that, but it doesn't make for a pleasant listening experience. It makes for a pleasant reading experience. Like, it's the reason I'm okay with reading subtitles in an anime or something, but it doesn't feel right when you hear it.
And you know what? I think that's where a lot of the older JRPGs and why we go, oh man, dialogue is so awful in JRPGs nowadays. Because, you know what, if you were just reading it, it wouldn't be so bad. Like, I couldn't imagine playing Phantasy Star IV with voice acting. Because they say some pretty stupid stuff.
Yeah, no, they definitely do.
Somebody withholding information from me is the sixth most dangerous thing in this world.
Well, but it's still... But what I mean to say is that the translation job is still fun.
Same sequence. I would love to have someone voice act where the old man, where you go through the sequence and he says, "Do you want to know? Do you want to?
Sorry.
Do you want to know about this? No. Do you want to know about this? No. Do you want to know about this? No. Do you want to know Alice Brangwyn's measurements?"
30, starting at the top, 36, 42, thwack.
And then you know what, dude? You get those animations where like she would come out and punch him, or one like this. I don't think you've done the side quest yet, Rob. Maybe you have, where you have to help this sick kid. So Chaz does some sweet sword moves, and you actually get to see the sprites do that. Final Fantasy never did that ever until
6.
Ever.
Well, no,
I don't even think 6 did that.
6 has pretty radical sprite maneuver.
Yeah, their sprites were mostly just like shocked faces and jumping around. I mean, they were good, but they didn't have like the full-on dynamic animations.
Yeah, like when people threw something, like they would just do their victory pose from battle and something would fly out of their hand, or that.
But I think that we haven't even gotten to the best part of Phantasy Star IV, which is...
Everything?
Well, yes, but it's also the fact that this combat system is so much fun.
Macros.
Yes. Why? Look, if you have a turn-based game, anyone in video games... Why don't you have a macro system like Phantasy Star 4's? I mean, honestly, why don't you?
So for those who
are... John M. at RPGFan.com, if you develop RPGs that are turn-based, please let me know every time why you do not have a macro system.
So to elaborate for those who aren't in the know, what Phantasy Star 4 allows you to do is you can build macros like an MMO. You can assign all your attacks, and I think they let you save like 15 different macros.
It's like A through H or A through M or something like that. Like, you get a bunch.
Yeah, and so you can set up these macros to make it so that every character does a specific action, and the battle system is already really snappy. Like, the enemies don't usually have a lot of hit points. They usually take 2 hits to kill.
Of course, so do you.
True, exactly. Like, everybody hits really hard in this game. So, like... You have these macros develop, and it helps because this game has an insanely high enemy encounter rate.
But they're over so fast. I mean, You could win some fights with macros. You could win a fight in like
a turn.
under 10 seconds.
Exactly. This is the problem that I had with Radiant Historia, which was that the battles just went a little too long, and that's why I love Phantasy Star IV and why I love the Persona series, because they reward you for thinking and planning, and they let you get over with the battle quickly. Like, your movements through the dungeon, it becomes a war of attrition. Like, how much further can I go through this dungeon before I run out of TP, before I run out of magic points necessarily
Well, if you're not a
to do my
pansy, you won't get
skills?
hit.
Right. How long can I make it? And it's really intense in that way. And I think that this is my favorite kind of JRPG, where the battles are over nice and quick, but they're still challenging. I have died repeatedly playing this game. Like, not on random battles, but like the bosses. The bosses, if you screw up one round, you're done.
If you don't buff,
It's not easy.
you
It's
don't
not
cast
easy.
your buff spells on the boss, you're dead.
But what's nice too is that Phantasy Star IV gives you the ability to recover. You know what? You can lose 3 of your party members.
And still come back.
Yeah, and come back and resurrect them. And as long as you are doing what you need to do to get everyone back and everyone healed up, you can have your entire party back and you can be going and hitting. It's what's nice about Phantasy Star is that unless you're going through a dungeon and you are using TP like there's no tomorrow, chances are you're not going to run out of TP on a boss fight, because you have your techniques. Yeah, no, skills. That's it. Techniques are the magic. So you have your skills that have, X number of uses, but don't take up TP.
If you're going to get into the lore of the game, technically skills are the magic and techniques are techniques.
Yeah.
But now, wait a minute, because the androids can use skills.
Okay,
No.
Here's the dealio. Techniques are not magic. They are skills that people can learn. They're techniques, like you can learn it, but through practice. Magic is the ancient lost art of, magic, and that's why Rune calls his moves magic, and that's why Rune is the only character who has his skills are magical spells, because he's using old school magic.
I thought Raja knew magic.
Yeah, Raja, Kyra, and Rune can use magic.
Okay.
And
do they talk in the old Phantasy Stars about what an Esper is?
An Esper is just a type of people that live on Desolus.
Okay.
And they're basically just fancy pants magical people.
That's another thing I love about this game, is that it makes sense when you find equipment. Like, you don't suddenly walk into a Matavia armor store or a weapon store and buy a pulse rifle. You find them in the more science fiction areas, in like the crashed landing site or on a space station. So like, Ren isn't walking in as a giant android going, I want your biggest pulse rifle.
And you know what? What's really cool about that, I agree totally, Rob. There's a dungeon, and I can't remember which one it is, but it's one of the tech dungeons. And you find an unlimited repair kit dispenser, and it's the place you go to if you want to buy healing items for your androids. Because for those people who are young or haven't played it, androids cannot use techniques because they don't have mental power, and they can't be healed by normal magic or normal items. You have to use a repair kit.
You know what? And it's great. And then all the androids have their own repair skills. But then if you just walk around in dungeons, they regain hit points as they repair themselves.
That's so awesome. When I finally got Ren in my party, I just put him right in the front. And he just takes the brunt of the attacks.
Ren is your truck.
But at the same time, you have to be careful. Like, he has the ability to recover his own hit points, and you have to be careful because he will drop if you go too far. Like, if you push yourself too hard and you let that high enemy encounter rate. So even though they're throwing you a bone by like letting you have an android that recovers hit points, they're still saying be careful. Like,
on the other hand, though, the repair kits revive them too. So if you can get enough repair kits, they're actually the easiest characters to fix, which is cool because they're machines.
And if they drop in battle, once you finish the battle, they come back with 1 hit point.
Mm-hmm.
Though Steven just linked us the final battle from Phantasy Star III. I forgot that the end boss is in a treasure chest.
Yep, and he looked goofy as hell.
I'm gonna watch that after we're done.
You know what? I'm not gonna lie. The final boss song in Phantasy Star 3 is badass.
I am just, it's amazing to me because we talked a while back. I think it was when we were first talking about the women in RPGs. Phantasy Star IV was like my opening into RPGs. Like,
Same.
I played it on Sega Channel. It was just, what the hell is this Phantasy Star game? Let me try it. And it kicked my butt, but I loved it. And it was so hard to find. You couldn't go find it in a store.
It was like $70 or something.
Phantasy Star 4 was 100 when it came out. Like it was brutal. Like if you can find that game, it's awesome. So like this was the opening
Looking at my box.
This was the opening RPG for me, and I never had an opportunity to finish it. And I'm right now like just about ready to beat it. And we're talking about almost like 15 years later. I'm finally going to beat this game, and it's kind of emotional for me. It's kind of amazing to think that this was a game that started my love of RPGs. It's the reason I'm writing on this website and
Same here,
podcasting.
definitely.
And like I played this before Final Fantasy VI. I remember my buddy Nathan was like, well, he didn't like Phantasy Star 4 when he saw it, and he was like, oh, you got to play this. And I played Final Fantasy VI, and that's how I started with that whole area. But like, it's kind of the end of an era for me right now. I'm gonna beat this damn game finally.
I can't wait till you get to the last boss, because the last boss is so 90s but so awesome.
Is it a
And
giant tree?
No, it's
No, that's Suikoden 4.
dude. The final boss in Phantasy Star 4 looks more badass than any final boss in any Final Fantasy. Fact.
We're talking about Dark Force, and at one point you gain a party member, and it's like for one dungeon you gain a party member, and everyone's kind of looking at him like, who's
Why
this
are all
guy?
your moves pure evil?
Yeah, why is this guy like using the most evil moves in the game? And he turns into Dark Force, and this guy, like the animation of this guy is just awesome. Like he's this big skeletal hook-armed mother effer ready to kick
stabs
your
you in the-
ass.
Oh, dude. Like that's the thing is it hit like the whole game is just so like hard hitting. Like I wish I hope you understand what I'm saying when I say that. Like everything is punchy in that game. Like things the only word I can come up for it is everything is badass in that game.
It's like what you have
When you fight the last boss, it's this bass heavy song that's just like pumping the bass, and it's just like, you know what, this is the showdown.
It's like you have 300 hit points, but a regular hit could hit you for 90. So you're always 2 to 3 hits away from death. So you always are on the edge of your seat. What's great about this game too is that when you level up in this game, you feel it. Like one level up makes you significantly stronger. Like just going, there was one boss, I can't remember who it was, because I was playing it like 2 months ago, and I could not beat him, and so I just walked around and leveled up twice. I took him on again, and he was a pushover. Like you really level up in this game. Like by the time you beat the game, you should only be like level 50, like around that area.
Funny you say that.
Yes, because you told us on an older podcast, Steven, that you leveled up to the point where the game started to regress levels on you.
No, actually, that was at later in life when I was, already, beating the game a ton of times. As a kid, I got to the final boss in that game at level 27.
What?
Because I ran from every fight.
Oh, yeah. I was the same way when I was a kid. Like, I never wanted to fight. I thought you had to run away.
I said, I'm going to run and save my TP. And then, you get to the boss, and the boss smites you in one blow.
This is the beginning of Steven, like, I can't believe you didn't platinum Demon Souls, dude. You are so insanely hardcore when it comes to games. Like
He always plays hard mode, everything.
I know. I'm just like, what is wrong with you, Steven? You are like the Rain Man of video games.
So
Like, can you say 10 minutes to Wapner?
10 minutes to go up there.
Okay, never mind. John, you were trying to say something?
So I want to go back a little bit. You were talking about actually how you can get infinite number of repair kits, and this is where I want to start. I love Phantasy Star 4, and I'm never going to say that it's anything but a fantastic game, but I have gripes with Phantasy Star 4.
Oh yeah.
It has archaic things in it, like the inventory.
The fact that you can't compare equipment. There's lots of things that are not wrong, but the fact that there's no way to identify something. Like the game has very obvious tiers of equipment, but you know what? How am I supposed to know if a ceramic sword is better than a laser sword?
Personally, I would
sword.
expect the laser sword to hit a hell of a lot harder than the ceramic sword.
Well, or for example, when you get certain guns, you get like a pulse shot, or then some of the guns, it's almost impossible to tell the differences. Like
Now-
you get like a wave shot and a pulse shot, and it's like, what's the difference?
Yeah.
Now, when you actually get into the equipment screen, it lets you know. But when you're in a shop and you're like, should I buy this?
Yeah, and it costs 30,000. Meanwhile, you have 60,000, and it's like, well, I guess I'll buy it. Oh
Buy the one
God.
with the biggest numbers. Oh man, it makes Chaz super slow.
Ah.
Rob, do you have On Rune, just a random question.
2 shields, yeah.
2 shields? Good.
Yeah. So Rune is just like my turtle magic user.
You put him in the back, you give him 2 shields, and he smites everything.
Yeah, I remember when I lost Raja in the game, I wanted to cry because I loved having a healer. Like, this game gets brutal when you don't have a designated healer because you're sitting there, you're trying to make sure you don't run out of TP. Like,
not only that, but Raja's level 1 heal spell heals like 90 HP, which in that game is like half of your life.
Rob hasn't gotten to the end of the game, which is like the best part.
I know. I'm
really
still
is.
trucking along. Like, I love this game, and I did the air castle today. And we want to talk about gripes. It's not a gripe, but if you don't think that a top-down dungeon can give you a headache, oh my god. Like, I was so lost playing. I spent 2 hours playing the air castle today. And I got completely lost at one point. I was like, I don't know where I am. And then I got to the room that lets you heal yourself. And I was like, yeah, all right, let's do this.
You are now halfway. I mentioned before the show, as a kid, I was like 5 playing this. And for people who have played, they remember you get through this dungeon and you are, fighting like crazy. And then you fight the bad guys that brought you to the dungeon. And you're like, oh, cool, I'm at the end. I'm going to go into the next room.
Halfway.
And I'm going to get the item I need. And then you walk in and you're in the basement. And as a kid, I was playing it and I fought these guys and I have like nothing left. And I'm like, all right, I just go through this door, I'll grab the thing, and then I'll bounce out of here. And I went through the door and I'm in the basement and I literally started crying.
And the boss at the end of that basement was like the hardest boss in the whole game. Like, I barely got through him.
I was stuck on that boss as a kid because, I played this game over 2 years as a kid because I just didn't get RPGs yet. I didn't understand that leveling up was a smart thing to do. I was stuck on him for like 5 months. And I emailed the guy from the Phantasy Star pages and I was like, dude, how do I beat these people? And he's like, you should probably level up.
What level are you, 12?
I was some horrifically low level because he would use that another gate move and it would instantly kill everybody.
Yeah, this game is brutal. Like, and I can't wait to finish it.
I disagree. You know what? Phantasy Star IV isn't brutal. Phantasy Star IV is pretty fair. Phantasy Star II is brutal.
Well,
yes.
True. But I think 4 rewards hard work. But if you are like 1 or 2 levels under where you should be, it's really hard to get.
Oh yeah, no, I can't disagree with that.
Yeah.
Foolishly.
The other antiquated stuff that can be frustrating at times is like there's no overworld map. Which is such like at one point the game's like, go back to the spaceport, and I'm like, crap.
But the space, you know what? But even though there's no overworld map, you have a spell that will teleport you to any city that you've been to previously.
But then this is what happens, John. Okay, is this the right city? No. Okay, let's go to the
no,
next
because
city.
you remember that the spaceport is right by the city where you killed Zio.
What's that city's name?
I don't know, but you have enough hit points to go through, TP, to go and be like, well, I remember it was in this part of the game. Let's go back. I know it's on Motavia.
I'm gonna get there. Damn it! I'm gonna find it. No, it's a little thing, but even it's not the friendliest RPG in the world. Like I think you only get 5 pages of items, and I'm constantly having to discard stuff. And I love when you don't know what a Stardew does, and so you're like, okay,
heals the party, or it heals the whole party,
Steven,
including robots.
Steven, I know that now. So like you examine it, and it says like a yellow perfume.
Also, Rob, that city was called Cattery. Sorry, I was just waiting to show off, but go ahead.
This man is an encyclopedia.
20 minutes to Wapner.
So, we've talked a lot about the gameplay here. We haven't talked a whole lot about the story.
Okay.
Well, the story. No, we talked about the story in the beginning. How it's kind of it.
Well, I want to go back to my gripes.
I know what you're gonna say. Okay, go for it. Go for it.
All right.
Simpler time, John. Let it go.
Well, John, can I act out your gripe? Can I just act out your gripe? Actually, you want to act it out with me? You can be the other guy. Oh no, my spaceship crash landed.
Hey! You know what? I know where there's a spaceship. It's like one town over. Let's go.
Wait, but these spaceships are ancient technology and don't exist anymore.
It's okay. The bartender in the next town knows how to work it.
All right.
No. We're completely ignoring the fact that Raja, the character that I'm playing, had just had his temple had a spaceship land on it. And he's just like, "Oh, let's go."
And he starts throwing out jokes.
Yeah.
Like, you show up and that game has been so serious to that point. Like, you have Chaz and Rune bickering, and you have, like, Rika doesn't get the world, and Demi says awkward things, but you get Raja, and Raja's just flat out telling horrible jokes, and it was hysterical.
he's like, that uncle.
And so what the guys are trying to hint at right now is that the game is very convenient. Like, you will, like, have this amazing escape from this awful, exploding satellite and land on this miserable sun-soaked station of a planet. Okay, guys, our spaceship is completely ruined. How are we going to find something? Well, actually, 2 towns over, they have a new spaceship. What? Yeah, it's under.
Conveniently enough, it's bigger than your original as well.
Yeah, everything's going to be fine. Like,
oh wait, hold on. There's an evil wizard on top of it. Don't forget that.
The game, it is very convenient like that. It's very 90s RPG, and I think that comparing it to Final Fantasy VI or Chrono Trigger, I can't say that the story is better, but I'm interested.
What's interesting is, even though the story isn't better, the individual characters, despite not having long expositions of dialogue, are incredibly well developed and likable.
Yeah, all the characters are likable. Even Grizz, who just hits things with an axe, is like.
Hey, he has Warcry too.
Well,
yeah, his Warcry is just like
because he's fighting for his little sibling.
Yeah, and like Rune is constantly giving Chaz grief. Rika is just like, I'm cute and I have cat ears. Demi is
I love Chaz.
Demi is this tiny little android. Ren is this giant 998-year-old, just evil-looking dude who just hits things really hard with a rifle.
If I recall correctly, in the Japanese version, he was 999.
Oh, golly.
But I don't know why.
Steven.
And he's not
played
the
the
same.
Nonary game in his previous life.
There's a reference. It just strikes me as so cool. Like, we always think of Final Fantasy VII as like the first real cinematic RPG, and then you play Phantasy Star IV, and it's like, no, this was kind of the start of it, guys. Like, you compare the comic book panels of Phantasy Star IV telling this story to, I always remember the scene, like the lovemaking scene in Final Fantasy VI between Terra's parents, and they're like, and the sprites are just dancing around each other, and there's like, stars, and it's just awkward. And then it's like, oh, we have baby Terra. It's like,
that's how it happens with me. I don't know about you.
Well, I mean,
yeah, I mean, that's generally how it works.
Where do half-breed espers come from? Well, you just dance around each other for 20 minutes.
Sparkles and stars, and dance it.
Stars, and we have a child. But it just, the cinematic quality between the two games is awesome, and then the fights, and how everything animates.
Even, people gave Final Fantasy VII credit. Oh, it killed the main character, and then people go, "Oh, Phantasy Star IV killed the main character. Phantasy Star II kills the main character."
Yeah, exactly, and it's like the most lovable character ever. Like, to play that game during a young child's sexual awakening, like, you're gonna love cat ears for the rest of your life. Like, you love Nay, like, you're always gonna love her. And then
you have to kill her.
What just happened? What just happened, guys?
Yeah, I
There's a reason why everybody loves cat-eared anime women.
Maybe that's just you.
Just me,
yeah,
guys?
I don't like Rob. You have insurance. You have a good job. I think you need to go see a therapist.
Thank you, John. Thank you.
No.
Oh boy. So I think we're all kind of in love with Phantasy Star IV, and I think it's a great game. Like, if you got into JRPGs in the PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2 era, and you kind of want to go back and play some of the old classics, I think you have to play Phantasy Star IV. Like, it is such an awesome game, and it is aged remarkably well. Like, I'm having more fun playing this than I thought I could.
Well, the nice thing about it is that there's nothing that's broken about the game. You can go back and play, like Kimberly. Kimberly went back to try and play Earthbound, and like, you have to use menus to talk to people and all this sorts of things that put something between you and the game. Phantasy Star IV was also one of the first games that I think really understood user interface.
Yeah, I mean, it's not perfect. It can be a little cumbersome.
But yeah, it can be cumbersome now that we're playing it in 2011. But for a game that was released in 1994, like, this got user interface. This has a better user interface than many of the RPGs that are released today.
Yeah, and then you go back to the number one thing that we were talking about, and John is yelling at people for, the macros. Like, the macros make this game awesome. And we didn't even talk about combination attacks, guys. Oh my God, how did we not talk about that? Like,
here's a good story, Rob, and I don't know if you've heard this. When the game came out, the box or the manual says there are 15 combinations attacks. There are 14, and people literally like blew up on the internet trying to find the 15th combination attack. Literally, I remember like scouring the internet. This was like the early days of the internet, and I was like there was no Google, there was like Yahoo and like Alta Vista. And I'm looking, I'm like, what is the 15th combination attack? I can't beat this boss. Maybe it will help me.
I used to love like random urban legends that people invented about games when I was younger.
You can resurrect General Leo.
oh
Yeah,
God.
exactly.
Or you can revive Eris if you
You
walk
can revive
around in a
Eris
circle.
if you go find the fish that gives you the materia, the holy materia from the bottom of the lake. Then you can revive Eris.
Oh, I remember. But then you have to think back to the best urban legend that I have, and this is a little preview. We're working on a editorial feature right now on the best games, the best RPGs of the 90s.
Phantasy Star IV.
Well, Phantasy Star IV is up there. One of the ones that I remember, and this is just a preview of the feature, I beat Castlevania Symphony of the Night, like when it came out that October in 97. I put it on my wall, and I was like, okay, that was an awesome game. Like 6 months later, my buddy calls me on the phone, and he's like, did you know there's a second castle in Castlevania Symphony of the Night? And I said, there's a second castle in Castlevania Symphony of the Night.
What?
And I sat there, and I made my buddy Brian talk me through how to get to the second castle over the phone. And I got to it, and I flipped out. Like, I was just like, oh my God.
Did the castle.
So did the castle, right?
Like, how could you keep something like that a secret? Like, you can't do that anymore with video games.
No, because they'll be all like, well, we can't hide content from the user.
Yeah, and it just that kind of stuff.
Or if it's Capcom, they just be like, users don't want that content.
We're not going there. We're not going there. Not today.
Oh, the cat.
Because that could be an entire podcast on its own.
Yes.
But
I've been crying for like 4 days straight.
Yeah, if you're listening to this podcast, you already know what's going on with Capcom. We don't need to go there.
Yep, we're not going to go there. So just real quick, they have combination attacks in Phantasy Star IV where two characters use abilities. And I just remember they don't always work, which is kind of a bummer. Like sometimes they won't happen. But when they do, it is just like, you know.
Oh, and the first time you discover one, like I remember I was like, oh my God, how did I do that?
And the first one you normally discover is like Firestorm because you use Foi and is it Foi and
It's
Zan?
Foey and Zan.
Is it Foey? I always just call it Foi.
It's pretty sure it's Foey.
Yeah,
because that's how it's pronounced in Japanese.
Yeah, Foey.
But you know what? The first one I found is the one that breaks the game for the first like half of the game, which is Tri-Blaster.
Oh, is that
That's Tsu, Foey, and Watt in that order. And if you make a macro, I mean, literally, you win every fight instantaneously.
Nice. And you have to do them in order, right?
Some of them, like Firestorm, you don't have to.
Like,
the reason they get interrupted sometimes, Rob, is because an action can happen that interrupts it. Like if an enemy has an agility score that's higher.
Yeah. And it's one of the rare RPGs that I actually like. I typically don't like JRPGs where you input all of your commands and then the round plays out. I typically don't like that, but Phantasy Star IV never makes me feel like I'm out of control. I know Persona, I think you also have to assign all your actions, but the game doesn't just it's not like the whole wheels come off the truck real quick and you're screwed and you wish you had those action back. It never really happens like that, since most enemies will kill you in 2 to 3 hits and not 1. So you never feel like you're out of control even though you're planning out the whole round.
I can't wait for you to fight the last boss.
I'm gonna fight him and beat him.
It's so bitchin'.
Some of my I don't know if Rob is there yet. It's been a while since I've gotten through the end. I got up to like the second time you get to Desolus in my last playthrough, but I just remember like the reuniting of all of the characters is like, oh my God, this is great.
Like they show up and they're like, Rob has not gotten to that part yet.
Yeah, I'm like almost there, and that's
they
really.
All show up and they're like, dude, we heard some stuff's going down. What's up?
It's like getting the band back together. Only it's awesome because you don't pick your party in this game. The party is very.
Because it gives you the best party you could use.
Right. Well, I would always want Raja, not just for his jokes, but he keeps everyone alive.
Well, yeah. The thing is, if you didn't use Rune Ren, Rika, or Chaz, you're a fool because they're the best characters.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. And I Ren is just the giant truck that just takes damage. And he's kind of useless in boss fights, though.
I don't think so. Flare is consistently does a good amount of damage for the entire game.
But he always takes so much damage that you're usually recovering one round and then using flare and then recovering and then using flare. He's really useful in regular fights, but I always found Ren to be a little so-so in a boss battle.
Did you get like Burst Rocket and Positron Bolt?
Yeah, I got him.
Yeah, because one bummer about the game is if you get Ren's abilities late in the game, the number of uses you have is based on how many times you've leveled up. So if you get Positron Bolt like at the end of the game, then you pretty much will only be able to use it like once. But if you get it as early as you can, by the time you get to the last boss, you can use it like 6 or 7 times.
Yeah. So I think we should probably move on to news, but I guess what we're saying is definitely play Phantasy Star 4. You know, it's on a bunch of Sega Genesis collections. Is it part of the Phantasy Star collection? I think that's only 2 and 3.
No, the right? Game Boy Advance version does not have
4.
That's 1, 2, and 3.
That's just magic. One of those. That's one of those moments. I just look at Sega and I do.
Well, would you like to know the logic behind that?
I'm guessing the logic was either to release it separately or it was too big.
Too big.
Yeah, I figured.
Like and you know, you look at Phantasy Star 4, which had a 24 megabit cartridge, which was one of the biggest at the time. You know, 24 megabits is like 3 megabytes, which doesn't sound like much, but for the time,
that's like 2 Blu-rays.
Yeah.
It would have been like Final Fantasy 13 releasing on 13 DVDs or whatever.
Why was that so appropriate?
So we all love Phantasy. Oh, also the music in this game is awesome.
Yeah, sorry, that was the sound of my rune using Gigra to kill everything.
I love the battle music. The opening theme for this game, that got me so hopefully Zach spliced it into the beginning of the episode instead of our regular intro music. That opening theme is just, I remember hearing that for the first time and I perked up.
Rob, the ending theme is a slower version of that. It's awesome.
Cool. I'm going to beat this game. All right. So, Phantasy Star 4, go out and play it if you haven't already. John, do we have news to talk about? And
yes, we do. So
we're not allowed to talk about Capcom?
Mega Man Legends 3 was canceled.
And it's because of you fans not showing enough interest.
You, because you didn't make the game for them.
Look. Okay, go. Okay, it is 9:07 right now. You guys have 1 minute to go off on Capcom.
Why?
I already said my piece.
Why, God? Why?
Okay, fine. You have no minutes to go off on Capcom.
Wait, no. I didn't get my minutes.
Say it, Steven.
Look, here, I'm
preach it to the choir, Steven.
I'm just gonna basically reenact the press conference. Oh. Wow, I don't know the names of anyone in Capcom. I was going to speak Japanese. Okay, here's the deal. Inafune-san, bakane. Yes, Inafune-san wa bakane. Therefore, let's kill Mega Man, murder him, destroy him, delete his game. The fans really want this game, though. Well, that's okay. They don't know what they want. Let's go ahead and put some stupid red gargoyle thing in Marvel vs. Capcom.
Okay, that red gargoyle...
Firebrand is cool, and I beat Demon's Crest again yesterday.
Yeah,
Firebrand is cool. However...
Mega Man is cooler?
Marvel vs. Capcom is their biggest heroes and legends, yet Capcom's most iconic character is somehow not there because people didn't ask for it, even though they did.
Wesker's in the game. What are you talking about?
Wesker has a really funny thing in that game. Before Wesker does any special move, you hear a really loud siren blaring, and if you play the game, you will laugh because it happens. Every time he does a move, you hear...
All right, so that's the big news out of Capcom.
That's all I gotta say. I'm just crying constantly. My life.
Is Mega Man Legends that great of a game?
Mega Man Legends is awesome.
It looked horrible when I saw it as a kid.
Rob, it's Zelda with Mega Man, only Mega Man style.
All right.
You get roller skates.
Right there's a win.
The second part, yeah, that makes it good.
All right, John, what else you got for us?
All right, we got a couple of indie RPGs that hit the PC. We have Dungeons of Dreadmore, which is a roguelike, and then we have the 2 Xbox Live indie games, Breath of Death 7 and Cthulhu Saves the World.
Working on those for review, guys.
Yeah.
Just about done Breath of Death, and then I'm going to do Cthulhu.
Cthulhu Saves the World and Breath of Death are a combined $3, and Dungeons of Dreadmore is $5. If you like JRPGs, classic JRPGs, go for the bundle. If you like roguelikes, go for Dreadmore. If you like both those things, well then, you, sir, have a good way to spend $8.
Yep. Just saying, I'll have my review up for both the Breath of Death and Cthulhu, hopefully by the end of next week. We'll see how much Phantasy Star gets in the way of that. Just real quick, definitely awesome games for $3 on Steam. I think they just said that they sold more copies of Cthulhu Saves the World in like 6 days on Steam than they did in the entire 18 months or whatever they were on.
Advertising helps.
Well, it's not even just advertising. Well, advertising in the sense that Xbox Live indie games are like the armpit of Xbox Live.
Yeah, and they're tucked in you have to go 8 pages in.
So if you don't know that you want to go look at indie games, they don't. No one would see it. It's not like you go and it's you log into Xbox Live and it's Old World Blues now out, which is my next news story. Go download it. It's oh, do you want to play this indie game? We'll go into 5 menus.
Yep, and that's
whereas
go ahead.
On Steam, it was you log in and it's oh, top selling game, Breath of Death.
I mean,
Robert Boyd was saying on his blog that it's just a lot easier. There's so much more visibility on PC that they can just get it out there to more people. And with the indie games, nobody's going to go in there and say, I want to drop $3 on something I've never heard of. Whereas a PC user is a lot more likely to say $3, that's chump change. I'll grab that, no problem.
Yep. Definitely great games. So what else you got for us, John?
Old World Blues is out, and I'm working on the review for that, and it's really, really good.
It's kind of like Point Lookout, right? It's a whole new area.
Yeah, no. Every DLC for New Vegas has been let's go to a separate area.
Okay.
So you get you go to this new area called oh god, I forgot.
Moltavia?
No, it's not Motavia. It's Desolus.
Desolus? Oh, okay.
Or Desoris, depending on what Phantasy Star you're playing.
Oh,
Dark Phallus.
So it's a place called Big Mountain. Big MT, and because it's MNT capitalized, everyone calls it the Big Empty.
Oh, I
so
see what they did there.
It's in the sense that all of Fallout is kind of making fun of science fiction from the 50s and 60s. This is like putting you in a science fiction B movie from that time. The very first thing that happens to your character is they take out his brain and his heart and his spine and replace them with robotics, and there are these 5 robot overlords that pretty much have you going out and doing their bidding. You've been lobotomized. It's wacky and kooky. You have a toaster that is megalomaniacal, and you have to feed it appliances. And
this sounds awesome.
It's very, very unique. And if you're into that weird, kooky stuff, it's great. Even if you're not, the quests have been very fun so far. It's actually been challenging. One of the issues that I had with Honest Hearts was really, really easy.
Well, I definitely want to try New Vegas again because I know they just released a major patch that supposedly brings the game up to running capabilities. And
yeah,
I'm kind of interested to try it again to give it a better shot.
Xbox, the patch was 14 megs, which is not much, but considering the average Xbox game patch is 500 kilobytes, that's a gargantuan patch.
It was something like 25. It might have been 250 megs on PC, but I started playing it again just briefly, and it's definitely smoother now. I remember when I reviewed New Vegas, and John, you were right with me on that review. There's so many headache problems, and it's it's kind of cool to maybe go back and try it now with all that stuff taken away, because I think Obsidian's writing wasn't the problem that I had with that game. It was mostly mechanics decisions and just the overall jankiness.
You still run into issues. In one of the reasons that Old World Blues is more difficult is because you're fighting a lot of robots and they have a very high damage threshold.
That was the number one thing I hated about that game.
But the game also gives you a lot of energy weapons.
But energy weapons have very low damage ratings.
They give you energy weapons that are very specific to fighting robots.
Okay. All right. No, that's cool, because that was my problem with the game, was the whole damage threshold thing. That made me want to strangle a puppy.
Yeah, no, it's still frustrating because I went in with my riot shotgun, which my riot shotgun mowed down everyone and everything in Honest Hearts. And it was like, do shoot Robodog, and Robodog's like, ha ha ha, I'm going to kill you.
Yeah, and then we figured out that you could just play that game literally fisticuffs and just punch harder than God and Chuck Norris. Like, whatever. Okay,
All right.
more news.
That's impossible.
Legend of Heroes Trails in the Sky. If you are a European, and I know that many of you are, it will be out in soon. I don't know. It doesn't have a date in this article.
Cool.
Play it. It's so good. You have no idea.
What?
Go ahead. No, keep going. I have a news story to bring up.
Trails in the Sky, classic JRPG. It's like 60 hours long. It's, I think, Ghostlight's bringing it out in the UK and Europe.
It's honestly one of the best JRPGs in a really long time, and for me, it's at the very top of the PSP library. It is so good.
PSP. Oh, dang it. I need the PS Vita. That way I can play it. Can I gloat now, John?
I don't even know about what, but okay.
So the June NPD numbers came out.
Oh my god. Well, I'm waiting for July NPD because Dungeon Siege was only out for 9 days in June.
I'm still saying it should have cracked the top 10 in 9 days. If it didn't crack the top 10 in 9 days, that game is not cracking the top 10.
All right, well, we'll see. You know what? I may be donating $10 to the charity of Rob's choice.
Wait a minute. I thought this was going to the charity of Rob. What is this charity business? No. We'll definitely donate it to charity. There's no sense in being assy about the whole thing. So but we'll see. I mean, again, I have no ill will toward Dungeon Siege 3. It's just that I didn't think the game. I think they did market it a lot better than I thought they were going to. Certainly a lot better than EA did Shadows of the Damned. But they did a good job.
Hey, hold on. Before you go and knock on EA for Shadows of the Damned marketing, Shadows of the Damned was released using the EA Partners program, which is the same program that we saw Rock Band released and we saw Brutal Legend released. EA just published that. They used all of EA's distribution and all of that. EA was not behind the marketing.
Okay. Now it's a shame though. I mean, Shadows of the Damned has problems, but I was hoping it would at least sell something.
No, I'm disappointed with a lot of the numbers from there, and considering Duke Nukem Forever sold like 400,000 copies.
And that's more just people wanting to watch a train wreck. You know, people paid $60 to watch a train wreck.
Yeah, I think a lot of people just bought that on principle. I don't know
it was
why.
also on Steam sale for like $20, and I'll admit I almost picked it up.
All right, more news. I don't want to talk about Duke Nukem Forever.
No.
All right, Final Fantasy 13-2 is coming out in January.
Get your hater pants ready.
Yeah,
That's biased.
I think it's actually going to be better than the first one based on what I see.
Should I even play it?
Didn't we have this discussion last time?
No. But no, that's not my question. Is that I will have no idea what's going on in this game because I didn't finish 13.
Then just watch the ending.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
Well, I'll explain it to you.
It doesn't matter. There's going to be a freaking encyclopedia that you can go through and read.
Oh, goody.
Everything, I'm sure. White Knight Chronicles 2 coming out in September in North America.
Delayed.
Yeah, it was delayed to September.
Yeah, delayed to September.
It was originally summer, I think.
Well, at least it's September because October is just looking. I was so happy. Speaking of delays, I was so happy to see Darkness 2 get pushed because I really want to play Darkness 2. It looks awesome, and they pushed it to February, and I'm like, thank God, give that game some room. Like White Knight coming out in September, that's still okay, but if that game got pushed to October, oh my God, it would have been swamped.
I have like 6 games coming out in September myself, so I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, for me, it's like Dead Island, September 6th. That's the one that I'm looking forward to. But
pre-order bonuses: Dead Island.
Can't wait for Dead Island.
Star Wars: The Old Republic, Lord of the Rings: War in the North. All those things have special pre-order.
Are we covering
stuff.
War of the North?
Yeah.
It's an action game.
No, it's not. It's an RPG.
Really?
Like it's here. Yeah.
Well, never mind.
Rob, I have played it. Have you?
But it looked. I don't know. It looks.
You know what?
Okay.
No. We're going to have a conversation about this.
Okay.
War in the North is developed by Snowblind, which Snowblind were the folks who developed Baldur's Gate: Dark Alliance and Champions of Norath.
Oh.
It's similar to that, where it's
okay.
but it's done with a more action-oriented engine. Like it's not quite the level of Hunted, where Hunted was Gears of War with a fantasy skin.
Gears of War with bows and arrows.
Yeah, but it's a combination of a more Gears of War style action game, or not Gears of War, I'm sorry, God of War style action game with legitimate RPG
Okay.
systems.
Okay, maybe I was just looking at it wrong, so that's cool. And so all these pre-order bonuses, Dead Island, and Star Wars, they're saying holiday release?
I don't even think they have a release date for it yet.
Yeah, no release date, but they said that they're looking at a holiday.
Okay.
So isn't there some game coming out that involves loot and awesomeness pretty soon with a beta or something?
Yes, I think we're gonna hear about the Diablo 3 beta in the next week. So
set for release in 2014.
you know what? It's gonna be the game of the year in 2014.
You're optimistic.
So more news. We have actually two of those games that have pre-order bonuses also have massive collector's editions. Both Star Wars The Old Republic and War in the North have collector's editions that are more than $100. We have the collector's edition for The Old Republic, which is $150.
Good God.
Which has a whole bunch of stuff with it.
So now, do we need all this crazy crap? I mean, I'll be honest, I was kind of lured to the collector's edition of Batman in Arkham City, but I said no. Like, I'm kind of getting tired of crazy crap on my walls, you know?
Oh, I hear you. And you know what? You see some of these. Like, I picked up the Killzone 3 collector's edition for $40.
Yeah, I mean, that's cool. Like, then I just think that when you have, like, the Dark Souls special edition, you had the Demon Souls special edition, Catherine, like, these special editions that are incentivizing you to pre-order rather than spend $100. Like, Catherine has the two special editions.
Which, honestly, one of my favorite special editions was the Civ 4 special edition, which was a pre-order, and you get the soundtrack and the spiral-bound instruction booklet. And then I paid the extra $40 for the Civ 5 collector's edition, which was easily my worst purchase of a collector's edition ever.
Yeah, and I think that that's kind of what we're hinting at is, like, I think it's cool to be incentivized to buy a pre-order, but don't make it more. You
want to know what the worst collector's edition I ever bought was? Final Fantasy 14, because you know what? It's $25 now, and that makes me want to gouge my eyes out every time I see it at GameStop.
Apparently they're still working on it. Apparently they're trying to fix
Derek,
it.
did they fix it? Because I know that patch came out. Is it still awful, or did they actually make it playable?
I was actually playing it today. It's like getting there. It has auto attack, so it's getting closer, but
do you think
it's got a long ways to go.
I feel like a long ways to go after this long.
Yeah,
that game is screwed. Because
it's coming up on its 1-year anniversary. It's been out for 10 months now, and it still isn't a fully featured game, and that makes me really sad.
Me.
If you want to play an MMO, Cataclysm, Rift, Star Wars is coming out.
I'm gonna get Terra.
Guild Wars 2.
Guild Wars 2. I don't think that Final Fantasy 14 is the way to go.
Do we think it's coming back? That was one of my predictions, was that it wasn't coming back.
What?
That they weren't going to release the PS3 version like it was.
They say that they're going to. There was actually a recent news update that's not in our news segment here that they were still working on it.
Yep, that's still one of my predictions.
Maybe they'll do a poll of the fans on their boards and use that to determine whether or not they bring it back.
Mega Man in Final Fantasy 14 confirmed.
All right. Two more news.
Yeah, let's finish it up here.
Two more news stories. The first download content for Dragon Age 2 is going to be out probably around the time that you are listening to this.
Dragon Age 2, the apology.
Yeah, so it's going to be $10. So it's a small form DLC. It's going to be out July 26th.
Can I just say real quick that I know a lot of people had huge problems with Dragon Age 2. We had a whole podcast about it. I think Dragon Age 2 has a lot of problems, but overall, that was a very fun game. It was rushed, and it had problems with repeating environments and the enemy waves. It was annoying, but like, I really hope that they listen to everybody on this, and it sounds like BioWare is going to make the next Dragon Age an apology, and it's kind of like, let's see what they do with the DLC. They've already said that they're addressing some of those issues with the DLC, so let's see how Dragon Age 2 plays with more of a Dragon Age 1 kind of world vibe. So I'm interested in it. I might pick it up.
So it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah,
And
I just think people saying that it's like the worst game ever made, I'm like, okay, even when BioWare kind of screws up, it's still a pretty good game.
Yeah, like I still played through the whole game and enjoyed it, and I dig the characters.
Yeah. So, last news story, John, go.
my very last news story, I saved the best for last.
Diablo 3 released.
Hyperdimension Neptunia Mark II. Hyperdimension Neptunia Mark II is going to allow you to, as an in-game attack, summon Keiji Inafune.
Are you kidding me?
No,
Maybe
I
he'll
am
bring
not.
Mega Man with him.
It's like a giant photoshopped Keiji Inafune sword. It's ridiculous.
It is. If you haven't seen this news story because you don't care about Neptunia Mark II, go and look. It's we posted it on July 17th.
I think I need to look at this.
And it is like when I looked at it and I saw the news story, I had to make sure that we weren't posting a joke because it really, you look at it and you go, this can't, what?
No, it is that.
The third picture in that story is my favorite, where he's shooting lasers out of his mouth.
Oh, good. It starts out with a chicken panties.
I don't think the video has Inafune in it. I think it's just the screenshots.
Oh, well, in that case, I care less with this video.
Okay, so I think we fit the end, gentlemen. So
Oh no, wait, I guess the video is Inafune.
Oh, really? Oh, look, they have another good shot of some girl's panties.
God.
This definitely seems like the kind of game.
You're the one that's noticing it.
Well,
sigh. All right. So,
oh, Keiji Inafune spits a laser at them.
laser beam. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining me on this, Phantasy Star 4 podcast. Guys on the boards, let us know what you guys think about this. We definitely hit slumps during the year where there aren't a whole lot of RPG releases, and we still want to get a podcast out to you guys. So why are you just posting JPEGs like crazy, Steven? God, stop it. We definitely want to do these kind of podcasts some more. I know we talked about doing a Chrono Trigger podcast at some point, so maybe some older RPGs, a chance to really, talk about some classic games, maybe if you weren't around for those kind of things. It's kind of cool to listen to people talk about it, and then you can go back and play them. Things like Steam make it fairly easy to go and play these games again. So,
You know what? Someone needs to re-release the Genesis Shadowrun on something.
oh my god, I love that game.
The Genesis Shadowrun was.
You want to talk about a game that was ahead of its time. Like, holy crap.
The Genesis Shadowrun is pretty much like it has the exact same world as Deus Ex.
Yep, and it's awesome. So, speaking of that, we definitely have a lot of podcasts planned for you here in the next couple months. We definitely are going to have a huge Human Revolution podcast as we get into August, with looking at an August 23rd release date. Steven and I will hopefully be smashing some zombies' heads toward the beginning of September with Dead Island.
This was happening.
What was that?
I was just said that's what's up,
Oh, okay.
but I said it like Turk.
Oh, all right. And then we're going to have lots of games to talk about in October and November. A little game called Dark Souls is going to be coming out.
And then we're going to have our Dance Central 2 podcast.
All right, baby. Yeah.
Is that before or after the Barbie Horse Adventure podcast?
Oh,
We
after.
already had that. Way to be up to date. Thanks for listening.
Was I not invited?
Sorry.
Did you want to be?
Yes.
I didn't want to be invited to that. I got invited by accident. So, for Steven, for
You sent out
John,
the invitations.
stop it. For Steven, for John, for Derek, and for myself, thanks everybody for listening. Make sure to keep messaging us on the boards and subscribing through iTunes or the RSS feed. Talk to y'all later.